Hello there, Brandon Bailey here. Welcome back. It's been about a year since I uploaded a video on here. Ironically enough, the last one was the last 20 albums of 2023 that I put up on the top 20 songs of 2023. And I figured, doing this year-end list again would be a good way to make myself get back into taking the channel seriously and kind of have a plan for revamping not only this YouTube channel, but pretty much my social media and online presence with my solo career and solo music in general. And this is basically my way to kickstart doing that. Getting to do this top 20 albums and songs list, which tomorrow you will get the top 20 songs list. Obviously, you know what this video is all about. And before I get into the actual list, I want to go over a couple things just to get them out of the way. I wish I could have spent more time listening to new music this year. Unfortunately, this is all part of the reason why I haven't made videos for the channel. I've made a couple, but they haven't come out yet because I wanted to get this out of the way first. But basically, I just got busy doing a bunch of other stuff with music. Made a cover band this year and joined another band, which disbanded, unfortunately. But I've just had, I've listened to a lot of new music. Listened to about 61 or 2 albums versus the 70 or so I did last year. So a little bit less than I did last year. But I was more consistent with it throughout the year, whereas last year I really crammed in a lot of last-minute listening to fill the gaps. And whereas this year, I kind of had a list throughout the year, and I did pretty good at checking out all the albums that I wanted to. It just, when it came down to the wire at the end, towards the end of this month, I definitely crammed in, quite a bit, probably about 20 or so, but still not as much as last year. But yeah, it was a good year for music. It was sort of similar to last year, to where I felt like there wasn't a whole lot for me to be excited about, right off the gate. But when I dove deeper this year, I found that I found a lot of crazy good stuff that, I didn't necessarily find last year, when I dove deeper beyond the stuff that, was really good to me right off the bat. So, yeah, and before I get into the list, because I'm sure I'll say this a bunch with some of the albums coming up, just a lot of, last-minute surprises, a lot of things that just, artists dropped albums, with no notice, basically, whatsoever, and, and they were really good. I'll say this was a good year for that. It was a good year for people just being like, hey, I'm going to drop an album today, and no one's going to know about it, and then, bam, the internet blows up about it. Yeah, pretty good stuff. I feel like I have a well-rounded list. Stuff that I was familiar with, stuff that I wasn't. Maybe some underground stuff that some people aren't as familiar with, but we'll see what happens. Without further ado, I'm going to get out of the way these 10 honorable mentions, same as I did last year. I'm just going to, go over the album title and the 2 songs that I took away from it, and, maybe say an extra word or so, but basically just album title and the songs. At number 10 on my honorable mentions, I have Saxon with Hellfire and Damnation. Crazy that, these guys are still kicking after all these years, but, they're still ripping pretty hard. This is definitely one of the heaviest albums in their entire discography, and I really liked Hellfire and Damnation, the title track, and Supercharger. Number 9 on the honorable mentions, we got Khruangbin with Ala Sala, and yeah, they're mainly an instrumental band, but super trippy, chilled out grooves, you know what I mean? They got their own kind of individual sense of how they do a jam, and yeah, on this one I really dig Hold Me Up, in parentheses, thank you, and I love International. Both of those songs are really just, yeah, they're far out. They're great chill jams. Number 8 on my honorable mentions, we got David Gilmour with Luck and Strange. Of course, David Gilmour, guitarist from Pink Floyd. Um, I, I don't know if I agree that this is the best thing that he's done since Dark Side of the Moon, but it is definitely up there with some of his best solo work. It just kind of has its own identity, and it feels really cohesive. His vocals sound great. His band sounds great. Guitar solos sound great. What more can I say? I mean, maybe I just wish it had a little more in like the songs department, and whereas it's kind of a little atmospheric at times, but it's still really good. Don't get me wrong. Anyway, probably said more than I should have. Got Luckin' Strange title track off of that, and Scattered as my favorites. And number 7 on my honorable mentions, we have Nothing More with Carnal, and Alan Watts inspired, infused album, if you will. It has a lot of little snippets of Alan Watts throughout the album, and a few like little interlude tracks like that as well. But which is kind of strange because it is mostly a heavy album, but has a couple chill moments. My favorites on it were House of Sand and Blame It on the Drugs. Number 6, we have Brittany Howard from Alabama Shakes, now pursuing a solo output with What Now. And yeah, it was a really far out record. I totally wasn't expecting, like, because I've never really dove into Alabama Shakes that much, but this one was quite a surprise. Got a lot of different varieties on it, and she was really putting her heart and soul into this, like you can tell. I really liked What Now, title track, and Prove It To You. Number 5 on the honorable mentions, we have quite a surprise for me because I didn't expect to enjoy this as much as I did, but it was Liam Gallagher and John Squire, their little split project they did this year, collaborative project, if you will. It was a self-titled album, and yeah, very like early Oasis-y, it's definitely got that Beatles-esque kind of sort of raga rock, sort of blues rock kind of vibe to it, and it's just great to hear Liam sing with this much power and such a good sense of melody. It's just good songwriting, and I guess it's John Squire. I didn't really check out the credits, but he can totally rip, on guitar, like all the solos and guitar work all over the album, the riffs and everything. It's just excellent. Really great stuff. I really dug I'm a Wheel and Just Another Rainbow from that one. Number 4, we have Sean Ono Lennon, of course the son of Yoko Ono and John Lennon, with Asterisms, and he teamed in it's an odd album, doesn't even, aside from the last song on it, doesn't even really have song titles, but it works really well because they're a really proggy band and they can get away with doing something like this. All the songs are in paragraphs, like that's what they're titled as, and they're all just like scenes from a play, and it's a crazy ass death metal prog rock twisted fantasy thing. It's amazing. They put a lot of work into it. I liked the 4th paragraph and the 6th paragraph the best from that one. At number 2 in honorable mentions, we have Caravan Palace with Gangbusters Melody Club, and I really wanted to put this one in my top 20 for sure, but my only complaint I'll say about it, because I really dug all the songs, I just felt like maybe it was a little too long, and could have been trimmed like a little bit, because towards the back end it kind of runs on. But like I said, it all sounds really nice, and it's such a pleasing album to me because I really dig Caravan Palace and their sound in general. I liked Mirrors and 81 Special the most from that. Alright, before we get into the list, my top of the honorable mentions is Hiatus Coyote with Love Heart Cheat Code. And, man, this one just barely missed my top 20 list. Unfortunately, I hate to say anything bad about, like, these albums and stuff, but the only thing keeping it out of my top 20 is, unfortunately, I did not dig their cover of White Rabbit that they put at the very end of this album, which is why it still makes my honorable mentions, because it's at the end. It doesn't really hurt the flow, but I just found it to be a challenging listen. And the rest of the album, their original songs on it are incredible. They're just such a strange band, and yeah, this mind-blowing material and playing all over it. I really dug How to Meet Yourself and Cinnamon Temple. That song is insane. Without further ado, we shall get into the top 20 albums of 2024. Here we are at the end of the year, and gonna give my best spiels on how I felt about these albums and how I justify their rankings throughout the year. Alrighty. Number 20, we have Glass Animals with I Love You So Fucking Much, even though they put asterisks over fuck and bleeped it out for some reason. If you're gonna call an album I Love You So Fucking Much, just type it out. We don't need it blurred out. Like, come on, you guys are Glass Animals. Came out on July 19th, 40 minutes, 41 seconds on Polydor, and was produced by the band's own leader, Dave Bailey. No relation here. Yeah, I really dug this album. Haven't really seen it talked about a whole lot on the internet, unfortunately, outside of the Glass Animals like camp, really. But yeah, I thought it was really nice. Maybe not my favorite album by them for sure, but I felt it was a nice like pop sort of focused album, whereas like just really nice like kind of dreamy pop songs. But they all kind of have a nice like driving like kind of beat to them as well, and yeah, some interesting, surprising moments, especially with Dave's vocals. Maybe some of the synth parts here and there. But yeah, like really cool sounds throughout the album. Lots of catchy writing. A lot of these songs get stuck in my head like crazy throughout the year. Yeah, I really dug Wonderful Nothing. That one was a nice gritty vibe, you know, really dug that. Kind of some funny lyrics on it as well, as he usually includes in there, but that one was nice and like clubby and gritty, dark, bouncing, like kind of almost James Bond theme-esque like sounding. And then the other track I dug a lot was the closing track, Lost in the Ocean. Really nice, sweet, mellow track. Just very watery, you know, very ocean-y kind of sounding, but it's just a nice song, beautiful melody that he sings throughout it, and it's got a cool guitar solo that kind of just follows the vocal melody. Has a cool effect on it though, nice little like vibrato, kind of shimmery effect on it. Really nice song. Okay. Number 19, we have High on Fire with Cometh the Storm. And unfortunately, I have only checked out a couple High on Fire songs before this, and I had meant to check that like an actual album out before, but never got to. Always dug them. I really love Sleep. I've listened to everything Sleep's done before, and Matt Pike is an excellent guitar player, so there's no denying that. Just I admittedly have not checked out much High on Fire, but this album I've seen people talk about, and I was like, alright, I'm going to check this one out. So, it came out April 19th, runs at 57 minutes and 42 seconds, and it came out on a label I've never heard of, MNRK Heavy, and was produced by Kurt Ballou and High on Fire themselves. And yeah, God, what can I say about this album? It's just, it beats you over the damn head. Like, all of the riffs and the drums and the screams, they just pummel you into the dirt. You know, it's such a good, just abrasive album. It really reminds me of, like, the first couple Mastodon albums, and, like, the good parts of that I really like. Because I definitely prefer the later Mastodon albums where they get a little bit more melodic with the singing and move a little bit more away from like the death metal growlish sort of thing, and which is obviously like a key element of stoner metal and sludge metal, I mean, for sure. But like, you know, it's just the way that High on Fire combines it with like these Turkish influences, and they kind of make it like a little bit melodic, some cool like chromatic like riffs going on too, like, and some of the craziest solos that I've heard Matt Pike do, like even outside of Sleep, like he has some awesome solos in Sleep, don't get me wrong, but I feel like they suit more of like the Sleep vibe, where some reason in High on Fire I feel like there's more speed, like energy infused into it, so he just goes absolutely berserk. And like all of these guitar solos on this album, so yeah, it's incredible. It's just a total surprise for me because I didn't really know what to expect going in, but yeah, it just hits you over the head. I mean, there's the nice little I'm probably gonna pronounce this wrong, but Karanlık Yol is a nice little like Turkish like folk music interlude that they put together, and serves as a nice kind of bridge between all the really heavy stuff on this album. So I liked the opener, Lamb's Bread, and the third track, if I'm probably gonna mispronounce this as well. I think it's like some biblical figure or something. It's Trismegistus. Yeah, I don't know how that's supposed to be pronounced. I can look it up later. I should have looked it up before doing this. But yeah, those are my two ones, Lamb's Bread and Trismegistus. Alrighty, number 18, have the Pixies with The Night the Zombies Came. This runs at this came out on October 25th. It runs at 39 minutes, and came out on BMG Rights Management, produced by Tom Dalgetty, or Dalgetty, not sure how you pronounce his name. And yeah, this one was really cool. I didn't even hear that the Pixies were putting out a new album this year. I didn't hear anybody online talking about it either, unfortunately, and because I think it's a great album, solid album. I haven't listened to a lot of the Pixies reunion stuff. I've heard some of the songs, like the singles from the more recent albums, and I think they sounded cool, even though I know Kim Deal's not like a part of the band and whatnot, but whoever they have in now, I didn't check out the lineup. They do a great job, you know what I mean? And Black Francis, you know, he's still is such a hell of a guitar player and songwriter, you know, like he hasn't lost his touch for what the Pixies sound is, like at all. And if anything, adds more, you know, like, because I feel like a lot of the songs on this new album encapsulate a lot of what the Pixies are known for, but also add in some more like modern touches and just things, you know, that they've probably picked up along the way. It was a great track list, though, you know, lots of ebb and flow, you know, between punky songs and more chill, somber songs and more experimental things. Just all kinds of stuff. There's like a surf rock song on here. It's just a whole crazy mess of stuff. And I like the second song, You're So Impatient, and the fourth song, Chicken, the most. At number 17, we have Gary Clark Jr. with JPEG Raw. Came out on March 22nd, runs at 54 minutes and 2 seconds. Was released on Warner and produced by Gary Clark Jr. himself and Jacob Skiba. I'm guessing that's how it's pronounced. Sorry, there's going to be a lot of names in this, so I'm just letting you know right now that I'm not quite sure how you're supposed to pronounce it, so I'm sorry if I offend anybody on how I pronounce these names. Yeah, it was a last minute checkout for me for sure. I had heard of it throughout the year, but for some reason just never got around to it for some reason. I've always dug Gary Clark Jr.'s guitar playing for sure, and I've heard a couple songs, but I've never really checked out an album. Also haven't really heard much hype for this online as well, unfortunately, but yeah, it's a solid album, you know, like it's kind of a mixed bag again with a lot of different styles. I feel like he's pulling from a lot of his heroes and influences on here and stuff, while obviously incorporating his like gritty, kind of catchy, almost alternative-ish take on the blues and blues rock and funk rock and stuff. But he has a lot of like awesome features on here. I mean, you got Stevie Wonder and George Clinton. That's like all I need right there, you know. Like so many cool things. You know, you got gritty blues rock, some nice like kind of R&B-ish things, some kind of like symphonic, kind of theatrical like songs on here, and yeah, some heavier kind of stuff, like, and obviously I said George Clinton's on here, so you know you got a little bit of funky action going on. just crazy. The last track is epic too, Habits. Like it goes through all these different phases and stuff. It's wild. And I feel like a lot of the writing, the lyrics and everything, the themes are really heartfelt on here. And yeah, kind of writing about like a lot of struggles, it sounds like, and a lot of things going on in his life and in the world. And I really dug This Is Who We Are, featuring Nala on it, and Hearts in Retrograde, which that one kind of reminded me of like a Lenny Kravitz, if Lenny Kravitz was like slightly heavier. Like, yeah, that's sick fucking solos and guitar playing throughout this whole album, like for real. Just lots of great guitar work. I mean, as one should expect if you know Gary Clark Jr. All right. Number 16, we have Mother Mother with Grief Chapter. This was a very new band for me, probably the biggest surprise of the year, because I didn't know what to expect going into it. My own mother actually told me about this band. She found some song by them on her Spotify, so when I saw this was a new release this year, I decided to check it out. And yeah, it's kind of a wild ride. They're kind of a crazy band with a lot going on in them. Got a cool interplay of a male singer and like two female vocalists, and you know, everybody seems to be pretty great with their instruments, push the boundaries with effects and experimentation and stuff. Grief Chapter came out on February 16th. It runs at 40 minutes and 22 seconds. It was released on Warner as well, and is produced by, here we go, Ryan Goldemund and Jason Van Poderoyen. It's like, I don't know how you're supposed to pronounce that name. It looks like Poderoyen to me. It's like Poederooyen. It's quite a name there. Anyway, yeah, this album it's like I said, it's a wild ride. Like some crazy, like kind of edgy, angsty, like indie rock alternative like songs on here, but also some really sweet, like, you know, acoustic based songs, but they still kind of bring in like a little bit of an electronic and indie edge to it. And like I was talking about with the vocalists, like the interplay between the two different female vocalists and the male vocalists in this band seems really unique and dynamic. They all kind of have their own character within the songs. And yeah, like I was just really impressed with the way that they don't really like go over the top in a lot of their playing. Like, you know, it's not like super proggy or technical or mathy or anything like that. But when they do like a solo or a little like musical interlude of any sort, like it has some crazy sound to it. You know, they have some effects on it and stuff that really just make you turn your head and you're like, wow, what was that? Like lots of interesting stuff. I really dug To My Heart. That was another one of the chiller ones on there, but it's a really nice, beautiful song. And End of Me, which was another one of the edgier ones on here, which, you know, just has some really cool guitar moments. To My Heart as well has an awesome solo in it. But yeah, really cool band. I plan on checking more of their stuff out because that album was really good. Number 15. Oh, you know, I had to throw this one in here because this band had 2 spots in my top 20 albums of 2023 last year. You already know who it is. We got King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard with Flight B741. And yeah, this is one of those like last minute, didn't even know they were putting it out this year until the last second. They were on Instagram. They're like, hey, we got this album coming out. And like, I think it was like a week, maybe a month, but I feel like it was like a week or two. Like they were like, hey, you got this new album. No notice, guys. But yeah, you know, it was a little bit of an underwhelming album. I still really like it, obviously, because it's in my top 20. But like, Fishing for Fishies was one of my favorites that they had done, and that was basically this album, what they were doing on this album, where they're taking like that blues rock, kind of more garage rock kind of sound, and like kind of streamlining it, whereas Fishing for Fishies had a couple experimental moments, a la like Acarine or Psy Boogie on it, and a couple more psychedelic moments. Whereas this one is sort of similar to Nonagon Infinity in the way that like every song like kind of just trailblazes into the next one. Like it all kind of blends together, almost to a degree where like when I'm listening to it, even listening to it today again when I was re-listening for this list, I kind of felt like I didn't know what song I was on. I just constantly have to check what song it's on because I just have no idea when they're running into each other like that. But it's all really good. I like that they're just getting more and more in depth with the interplay between each member of the bands and their vocals. And yeah, really cool stuff. Like it's all just like one big jam, you know, but I like the theme throughout it, you know, with the pilots and the flying and the pigs and the rats and stuff like that. King Gizzard's really good at keeping a consistent theme going throughout their albums. But yeah, like I said, it kind of blurs together, so like individual songs is hard. I watched a couple of the bootlegs on YouTube, and you know, I've got to hear some of these songs, you know, played live through that, and kind of breaks them apart. But yeah, you know, not much else to say other than that. You know, like they're just really solid, and I just kind of wish there was like a little bit something else, you know, to break up the flow. But I do also appreciate that they really stuck to the blues rock kind of Black Keys-esque, Zeppelin-y kind of esque style, you know, kind of CCR inspired thing that's going on here. And there's moments where they push the ante a little bit, you know, they have ebbs and flows in the song structure and all that, and a couple great solos. And my favorite songs from it were Sad Pilot, which I seen a lot of people at first weren't really into this song. I don't really get it, because to me it's like the clear standout on the entire album. Great solo from Joey Walker on it too, probably one of his best. And then I liked Daily Blues. That song is just a lot of fun. Like, it goes on for a while, but it's just so much fun. Goes through all these changes, and they really rip on it. Like, each member really kind of lets loose on it. And, you know, they're just, I don't know, you know, what it's a reference to, but they're just talking about getting fucked up daily, and it sounds hilarious, and it sounds like a good time. All right. Next, we got number 14. Number 14, we have Pearl Jam with Dark Matter. This came out April 19th, 48 minutes, 21 seconds. It was released on Monkey Wrench and Republic Records, and produced by the one and only Andrew Watt, who also did the Rolling Stones' Hackney Diamonds last year. So I guess he's teaming up with all these veteran bands and, you know, trying to revamp their sound a little bit, which he kind of does on this one. And I guess that's kind of a similar thing with this one to the King Gizzard one, except for that it doesn't stick to like a theme or anything like that. I just kind of wish this album had some sort of like evolution in a way, and where I feel like Andrew Watt kind of just took like a lot of the best elements throughout Pearl Jam's discography, like all the way back to all the way now. You know, they've had many albums, but he takes a lot of their great best moments, especially from songs that are some of my favorites, and really just kind of mismatches them together and just kind of puts it all into this pot. And, you know, came out with some amazing songs with amazing production. I don't know if any of them are my all-time favorite Pearl Jam songs, but they're all really great. I mean, definitely a lot of the solos on here are some of my favorite Mike McCready solos. Like, he just is going absolutely nuts on some of these songs. And yeah, Eddie still sounds great. You know, he's always got a great range and great emotion in his voice, and the band's just playing amazing. You know, especially Matt Cameron. You know, always good to have him on drums. Always sounds amazing. My favorite tracks on there were the title track, Dark Matter. You know, great kind of heavy song, maybe one of Pearl Jam's heaviest, especially in their later years here. And yeah, Mike McCready just letting rip on the guitar on that one. And then I also liked Upper Hand a lot. I feel like this is the song that Andrew Watt had the most of a hand in making. it has such a cool build up, just such this big, like a big anthemic like swell thing that comes in, and then it just comes down to this like chill, nothing as it seems esque Pearl Jam song. Like it definitely has that more like binaural, like kind of chill, psychedelic, spacey, swirly kind of sound to it. But it's just such a nice, beautiful song too. Beautiful lyrics. Nice. The first solo in it is nice and sweet, with Mike McCready playing it, and then the one at the end, like he's just again the song explodes and he's just going nuts, and it's just one of his greatest moments for sure. That song, Upper Hand, might be in like a top maybe for me, like, but it's hard to say. Great moments all throughout it though, like just incredible songwriting and playing for a band that this far into their career, and the one band left of like the big four of grunge, you know, if you will. Now we have 13, Judas Priest on my shirt here with Invincible Shield. This came out March 6th. Runs at 52 minutes and 32 seconds. Came out on Columbia and Epic, and is produced by Andy Sneap. God, like, Judas Priest, you know, how do you guys do it this far into your career? Like, I want to know the secret, you know. I've showed people some of this album, and they've told me that there is some, you know, studio magic going on here that's making it sound as good as they do. Like, how does Rob Halford sound as good as he does at this age? He's like in his 80s, you know, but they still sound nuts. Like, I totally agree with Joe from Taste Like Music, you know, he says this they sound like exactly how they did on Painkiller, like somehow. It's basically how it sounds on here. Like, his voice doesn't sound aged at all. Like, you know, you do notice a little bit of modern touches on this one with Richie Faulkner joining, which of course he's been in for a couple albums now, I think since Redeemer of Souls, but yeah, his playing on this, it just takes it all to another like technical level, you know what I mean? And this album's just balls to the wall. Like, similar case to where I kind of wish it had something else that deviated from the norm on it, but I do appreciate it, especially with Painkiller being one of my favorite Priest albums. This one it's like the same thing where it's just like balls to the wall, heavy as fuck, you know, the whole time. Aside from like a couple moments similar to Painkiller, where you got something like A Touch of Evil, where it's like a slightly melodic and slightly chiller. But they have a couple moments on here where they break out some acoustic guitars, like in the mix or something like that, you know, and just clean things up a little bit. You know, it isn't fully grit and fire and brimstone the whole time, but it is pretty great, you know what I mean, for it being fire and brimstone most of the time. Like, they get very Old Testament biblical with you on this one, and just kind of, you know, just bring the whip down on you. But it's really awesome, man. Awesome guitar playing from Glenn Tipton and Richie Faulkner. They just never know how to stop getting good at guitar. You know, some people are like that throughout their career. They just keep evolving. And yeah, just wild. You know, what can I say? The band this far into their career, you know, they don't really have anything to prove. So, you know, they don't need to put out albums this good. But here we are with Invincible Shield. So we got number 12. At number 12, we have Bright Eyes with 5 Dice, all threes. And this came out September 20th. Runs at 50 minutes and 54 seconds. Came out on Dead Oceans, which I'm assuming is a label they're related to. And it is a self-produced album. To what degree, I don't know. Like, if it was all Connor Oberst or Nate was involved as well. I'm not sure to what degree all of the band members were involved, but it says self-produced. Anyway, yeah, this was one that caught me by surprise. I knew they were touring this year, but I didn't know there was any wind of like a new Bright Eyes album. And because it'd been a little bit since the last one they put out, kind of during the middle of COVID. But yeah, this one was quite a surprise, man. I like it a lot more than the one they released during COVID, for sure. Which I like that one as well, but I feel like this one just has a little bit more pep. a little bit more upbeat qualities to it and more experimentation with the guitars and the production and the soundscapes, which is something I always like in a Bright Eyes album, especially like an album like Lifted, like is especially one of my favorites, is chock full of like little samples and things like that that come in, like just little sound bites and stuff that keeps the atmosphere going. And I really like the songwriting on here. He brings in a lot of cool guests as well. You got Cat Power on the song All Threes. This dude Alex Orange Drink on the awesome single Rainbow Overpass. Obviously, great lyrics from Conor Oberst. He just writes from the heart and writes with total honesty, brutal honesty most of the time. But you know what I mean. It's really good and really catchy, and you can't help but love his candidness and conviction to all the things he sings about. So yeah, God, again, like it's like kind of at a loss for words with this one, because it's like Bright Eyes to me was broken up for a while, so the fact that they're even back together and still making music this good just kind of blows my mind. We don't deserve this. So my favorite tracks are Spun Out and Tin Soldier Boy, the closing track on it. Spun Out has some awesome guitar work, and Tin Soldier Boy, like Bright Eyes always know how to close an album. I feel like every album, the closing track is one of the best ones, and Tin Soldier Boy is no exception. It's a nice, sweet song, but it's also kind of epic and yearning kind of feeling. Very melodic and catchy too. Number 11. This is a band that I'm sure no one else but me has on here, even though they totally deserve it. They deserve more recognition than they get, and unfortunately I feel like they get overshadowed by, one, King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard, and two, the Murlocs, because of Ambrose Kenny Smith, and the member of this band, Beans, with their release Boots and Cats, which is pretty much like, from what I understand and what I read, which is kind of unfortunate, which I'll explain. This is like a solo album by Matt Blatch, who is like the drummer from the Murlocs, but he also is in Beans, this other band that was on Flightless Records, which is the label that King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard and Murlocs and all of them in Australia started together, and they kind of all evolved and expanded, and some have went with King Gizzard and their adventure into creating their own vanity labels and stuff like that, and Beans is one of them. But unfortunately, this album, even though it's under the Beans band name, it doesn't have like the rest of the Beans band on it. It was just I guess Matt saw it as an opportunity to record an album that he had in the works for a while, and I really like the band that was on All Together Now, the last album that Beans had put out, and it's just kind of strange to me that they're not on this one. I don't know if that's fully the case. Like, if Matt really played all the instruments on this album, that's insane, but it does sound amazing, especially the drums, because I feel like he's mainly a drummer. But like, that was one of the main things that hooked me into this one to put it in the top, is just the drums sound too damn good, and just all the instruments in general. There's some awesome organ, like, all throughout this. And I love his, like, kind of like stoner-esque delivery with the vocals. He never gets like too over-singy or too dramatic or showy with his vocal chops, but it all suits the song really well, and it kind of stays in like a lower throaty like kind of tone a lot of the time. But yeah, some really cool groovy stuff on here, funky stuff, trippy stuff, you know what I mean? It's, the song 1 to 4 is like pretty much like a drum solo. It has like a little bit of organ lead in there too, for sure, but basically just a drum solo, and shows off his chops. It's super sick. My favorite songs on this one were the instrumental Kookaburra and Silhouette, which that drum solo song 1 to 4 I was talking about leads like directly into Silhouette, and it's just such an awesome, powerful moment on the album. Totally kicks ass. Alrighty, we are getting into the top 10 here. Well, here we go. At number 10, we have the Smashing Pumpkins with Agori Mori May. And again, at least that's how I'm assuming it's pronounced. It came out on August 2nd, 44 minutes and 41 seconds is the runtime. It came out on Martha's Music and 30 Tigers. I'm assuming those are Smashing Pumpkins vanity labels. And it was produced by Billy Corgan himself, when you know. Yeah, this one is another one of those last-minute surprise albums of the year. Totally didn't know it was coming out at all, and then bam, here we go, new Smashing Pumpkins album. Even though just last year they finished putting out the third installment in their Autumn trilogy, which was very close to making my list last year, but I don't know. I just found it hard to justify it. Even in the honorable mentions, because one, it was part of a trilogy that they were released over a few different years, and I didn't fully enjoy all of the songs on it, you know. And where I'm gonna go into with this album is I feel like Agori Mori May kind of like takes a lot of the like aspects I loved of Autumn and kind of like boils it down into one, you know, short cohesive project. Because a lot of the stuff I liked on Autumn was more the heavy stuff and more the crushing, like kind of expansive, like guitar playing stuff that he did, and less of the like synthy, like I know a lot of people have compared it to like Stranger Things-esque kind of music, but those songs were nice on there and everything, but I feel like they were kind of made it more of a sleeper for me, and whereas the heavy songs throughout Autumn were more exciting, and this is definitely a lot of that. Agori Mori May definitely has a little bit of chiller moments for sure. They even have songs that blend light and darkness, like a bit, like some heavy moments mixed with soft moments and an ebb and flow between it all. But yeah, killer guitar work on here, you know, like with Smashing Pumpkins, I never know whether it's Billy Corgan or James Iha playing what, but the guitars all sound amazing on here. And of course, you know, you got Jimmy Chamberlain on the drums still, so he's like one of the greatest rock drummers of all time, and it sounds so powerful and brutal. Like, just, this definitely has some of his best drum work, period, on it, like, that's for sure. Yeah, it's just such dark vibes throughout this album. Like, I don't know, it's just, I feel like it's an album I've been waiting for a long time from them, to where they're just like, yeah, we're just gonna put out some heavy-ass riffage and, you know, just go balls to the wall with everything. Like, that's what they did here, aside from a couple of the more chiller, somber moments, like I said. But yeah, I feel like the songs are really catchy as well. Like, they're not just heavy and beat you over the head. They have a lot of thoughtful melody, and of course it's Smashing Pumpkins, so you got all the lore and mythology, you know, from all their songs from the past. My favorites on this one were Pentagrams and Sicarus. And Pentagrams is a cool, like, kind of creepy song that has a building, kind of brooding atmosphere. It's really not too heavy and kind of builds into its heaviness as it goes along, but amazing solo at towards the end of it. And Sicarus is just heavy all throughout. Definitely one of their heaviest songs they've ever made. Just that fucking bum 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 bum. It's just not something I ever would have thought they would have done, but here we are. Smashing Pumpkins is making a straight up metal song. So, and it's got some heavy riffage on it. Nice solo. That's all I need. Number 9. At number 9, we have Vampire Weekend with Only God Was Above Us. This came out on April 5th, runs at 47 minutes, and came out on Columbia. It was produced by, here we go again, Ariel Reichsbeid, Ezra Koenig, which I know that one because he's the leader of Vampire Weekend, and here we go, Orastum Batmanglitch, and here's a normal one, Chris Thompson. So we have 4 producers on them, and I am not repeating the names. So, yeah, this is an amazing album, you know what I mean? I've always loved Vampire Weekend and their quirky sound. They got such a weird, like almost indescribable sound half the time. But this one they really have pushed their boundaries even further. And the songs are still catchy and accessible when you know it. Like, as strange as some of the instrumentation and production is throughout a lot of this. But I really feel like they've put in a lot of effort to making these songs as perfect as, you know, I use that word with a grain of salt, but as perfect as they can be. And, you know, really didn't, you know, all killer, no filler, basically. They didn't, like, I feel like Father of the Bride, like, there was definitely some filler in that one that made it a little overlong, and this one's not a nice package. And, you know, it feels cohesive as well, too. Like, there isn't a lot of diversion throughout, but when there is, it's a nice diversion. But yeah, such unique songwriting and guitar playing, all throughout this, and like I said, the production too. There's just all kinds of things that happen that just perk your ear up while you're listening to it, and crazy beautiful vocal melodies and lyrics and stuff by him, by Ezra. I mean, you know, the leader. So my favorite songs were the single Classical off of it. That song is amazing. So it always gets stuck in my head, especially the riff, like, it's such a good riff, and the theme of the song, I mean, you gotta look up the lyrics and listen to it yourself, you know what I mean? It's just the which classical remains, and it's like, it sounds like it's classical music and jazz, which are both two styles of classical forms of music, but in different backgrounds and cultures, and basically, like, it's like the song is taking them and putting them in a battle against each other, especially towards the bridge. You hear that with, like, the classical kind of melody with the jazz piano and, like, slamming, and the horns just getting all atonal and stuff. It gets wild. And then my other favorite song on this was Mary Boone, which that song is, like, sort of a tearjerker, but it's also sort of psychedelic too, like, especially when it comes in with the harmonies and the beat comes in and stuff. It just gets super trippy. Like, I just don't know how they even pulled off that production in this song. This is such a beautiful song. Definitely one of the prettiest songs of the year. Like, it's amazing. Number 8, we have... Oh, here we go. We got a double whammy. So at number 8, we have The Smile with Wall of Eyes. And this came out way early in the year. It was January 26th. Runs at 45 minutes and 16 seconds. It came out on XL and was produced by Sam Petz Davis. And yeah, like, I'm probably gonna say the same thing for the next one, if you know what I mean by double whammy already. So this album is such a wild ride. You know, Tom York, Johnny Greenwood, Tom Skinner, you know, they all are taking the sound of The Smile even further than on the debut album, and doing some great things with it. You know, it's just crazy variations throughout this. It's just like where to start. Like, like, it opens like being all kind of chill and nice and beautiful and stuff, but then it starts getting weirder towards the end of that song, and just so many songs throughout both of these albums I'm going to talk about that are just, like, so disorienting and, like, kind of creepy and, like, you know, just brooding and, like, menacing. Like, it's just kind of manic, like, sounding, but they do that sound so well, even in Radiohead. You know, like, that was a lot of what drew me to some of their greater songs, is just a sense of mania and, like, that driving, like, kind of anxious, like, you know, nail-biting feel that they get into some of their songs. Like, so yeah, it's a really good wild ride. It's a little bit creepy, but, you know, some beautiful moments for sure. Like, Friend of a Friend is such a beautiful song. I mean, still gets weird, you know. You can't have The Smile without it getting a little bit weird, but still, that song is probably the nicest one on here. And I really dug Read the Room and Under Our Pillows the most, which both of those songs are two of the more driving, kind of manic, like, twisty, turny, guitar-based ones, like, really nuts songs. And then at number 7, obviously we have The Smile Again with cutouts. And I wanted to justify just having one on here, or maybe having both Wall of Eyes and cutouts in the same spot. But like, I don't know. I feel like that would be cheating. That's not fair. It's got to take up 2 spots. So yes, we have the second one above, just barely edging out Wall of Eyes. Like, they're pretty much the same album to me, much in the sense that like System of a Down did with like Hypnotize and Mesmerize or something like that. Only reason I prefer cutouts a little more is because there's a couple moments on Wall of Eyes that didn't hit me as hard, whereas pretty much every song on cutouts to me is pretty good. And I just feel like cutouts is a little bit better than Wall of Eyes for me, because I feel like there was a couple moments on Wall of Eyes where I wasn't like totally engaged with the song or something, where or it just wasn't one of my favorites on the album. Whereas every song on cutouts is basically something I could find myself going back to, and I really enjoy it. Not that I disliked any of the songs on Wall of Eyes, it was just every single one on cutouts was like a repeat listen for me. And that's basically how it edges out a little bit more. It has a little bit more of those like manic driving guitar parts, just more guitar experimentation, I guess, than Wall of Eyes does, and I prefer that a little bit more. My favorite songs from it were Zero Sum and The Slip. Moving on to number 6 here. 6, we have The Cure with Songs of a Lost World. And this came out November 1st, one of the more recent ones on the list here, with 49 minutes and 13 seconds. It was released on Fiction, Lost, Polydor, Universal, and Capitol Records, so like 5 different record labels. And it was produced by the band's own Robert Smith and Paul Corkett. And yeah, this one totally caught me by surprise. Knew The Cure was coming out with an album this year and did not expect it to be this good. It's another one of those cases where it's like, how are they still this good? They sound exactly like they did back in the 80s, or at least since like Wish or something like that. It's just wild. And like I checked out the concert video that they put out from the Troxy, and where they play this album in their entirety. Then they basically play like all their hits like afterwards, and they just sound on fire. You know what I mean? They just sound so good still, like nothing's happened over time. Really dug it. Really thought it was a nice cohesive thing. What's holding it from being really like in the top 5 is like, I feel like it starts a little bit slower, a little bit more melancholy like kind of sound with Alone and Nothing Is Forever, whereas into the middle and the later half you really get the grittier, more heavier songs, which kind of took me by surprise on this album for sure. But yeah, the cohesion and the lyrical themes on this song, it's like mourning of personal loss and loss in the world, it sounds like, and just kind of like a retrospection and kind of like in the moment analysis of where the Cure is at and where they're going, basically. And it all hits pretty hard and pretty well. Dug Drone No Drone the most on it, really, and All I Ever Am. Drone No Drone is one of their heaviest songs, if not their heaviest. It's got such a cool bass tone, nice guitar solo, and awesome biting vocal delivery and lyrics from Robert Smith. And All I Ever Am, I feel like, is the one on here that sounds like classic Cure. Like, it has just catchy melodic writing in it, and still has that touch of their new guitar player Reeves in it, you know, kind of showing off his work on there. And great bass tone. That's one thing I gotta say about this album, is like the bass tone, and the drums too, but especially the bass is just so gritty and it has this unique character to it. I think in any Cure album, really. Like, I've never heard it sound like that before in their songs. But alright, we are at the top 5 here. Top 5 2024. Alrighty. Number 5. We have an underrated one I haven't seen many people talk about. This is Gum, who is also known as Jay Watson, that's his real name, and Ambrose Kenny Smith, one of the singers, keyboard player, multi-instrumentalist from King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard and the Murlocs. They did like a split collaboration album called Ill Times. It came out July 29th. At 53 minutes, and like Flight B741, which I didn't mention with that one, this was the very first record released on King Gizzard's new vanity label, P in parentheses Doom Records, and this Ill Times album is produced by Jay Watson, Gum himself, and James Ireland and Joe Cara. This album is a bunch of fun, you know what I mean? Like, I just did not even know what to expect going into this one, but it's like the Murlocs, if the Murlocs were less like garage kind of inspired and more like writing kind of like 90s, like kind of funky alternative, like kind of songs, what it reminds me of. But lots of just hooky like writing on here. I love like this Jay Watson dude. He must be an amazing multi-instrumentalist. I'm assuming he plays all the other instruments aside from whatever Ambrose is doing. But yeah, great guitar work, awesome synthesizer and keyboard leads, and like the production with all that stuff sounds incredible. Awesome drumming throughout it, and like the vocal interplay between Jay Watson and Ambrose. It just works really well. And, you know, it basically sounds, like I said, it sounds kind of like a Murlocs album. Like if the Murlocs were just a little bit more focused on, like, just pure hooks and, like, that sort of thing. And less on, like, the more jammier sides of their sound, which kind of brings them closer to King Gizzard in a way. But yeah, I really dug Resilience and Power Trippin' on this one the most. There are two back-to-back songs on there, and, yeah, super catchy songs. I mean, Power Trippin' is really just a tour de force in this dude Jay Watson's production. Like, it's just such an amazing listen. And it's just such a good times kind of album. It's a good vibe, you know, happy vibes for the most part. Still some heartfelt lyrics and serious tones, but mostly good vibes on it. Alrighty, number 4. We have St. Vincent with All Born Screaming. Now, this one was a surprise to me. Always heard a lot about Annie Clark, or St. Vincent is what she goes by, you know, as like a new up-and-coming guitar player and, you know, singer-songwriter. But have not, I mean, I've heard a couple of her songs from previous albums, but never really thought too much, you know, because they were in passing. And then, just saw this in the list of albums that I wanted to listen to this year, and I finally got around to it recently, and was very taken aback by it. I think I'm definitely going to become a St. Vincent fan and check out more of her work, because this album's incredible. It came out April 26. It's 41 minutes and 14 seconds. Came out on Total Pleasure and Virgin, and it was self-produced, I guess, by Annie herself, and yeah, it's just crazy songwriting on here. Like lots of experimentation. Like I know she's kind of known for being an experimental guitar player, but like the production is kind of, in songwriting and structure is kind of more so what I mean. There's like some more industrial kind of like 80s-esque things going on here. Some stuff that kind of reminds me of like Hounds of Love era Kate Bush, like in a way. Like there's definitely some Kate Bush sort of influences, maybe some Björk even here and there, like but a lot of her own personal energy on here. You can hear a lot of that angsty kind of, you know, just drive. Like I just feel like she was really trying to persevere making this record, like as like, again, I use the term loosely but perfect as it can be, you know, like just make the songs breathe as much as they can, and she put as much energy and soul into them as she could. I really like the experimental touches of her guitar effects and the solos that she does have on here and everything. And great vocal work from her, you know, it's just all over the place. She has such a dynamic range, and, you know, totally something that's up my alley and I would like to dive a little deeper into. My favorite songs on here were Flee and So Many Planets, which is kind of like a little bit of like reggae inspired, which is, you know, not something I expected to find on here. But so yeah, that was a pretty surprising album to get into this year. You know, I'm glad I checked her out, and I'll be pleased to see what else, you know, comes down the road when I check out her discography. Lots of interesting material from what it seems. Now we are moving on to the top three, and at number 3 here, we have Jack White with his no-name record, or Untitled, however you want to call it, because it didn't really have a name to it, but it was another one of these last-minute albums of the year, and it was a pretty awesome surprise, for real. Like, I really dug the last 2 albums that he put out, Fear of the Dawn. That was a great, you know, couple albums. But yeah, it came out on July 19th. It was a loaded summer, for real, with lots of good releases. It was 43 minutes, 3 seconds on his, you know, his Third Man Records, of course, and it was self-produced all by him. From what I understand, anyway, that's what it said on Wikipedia, so that's what I'm going with. Yeah, it's such a gnarly record, you know, such a guitar riff, you know, centric record, you know, which, of course, everybody's been saying online that he's bringing the riff back, but you know, I sort of agree with it here. I don't think Jack White's ever lost the riff, you know, so to speak. On every album he's put out, he's had lots of great songs. So I don't really understand what they're talking about, but I do kind of understand what people are saying about him bringing back a little bit of the White Stripes energy on this album. Like, there is a little bit more raw, kind of garagey sound. None of it sounds real garagey, because, of course, he's got such awesome, masterful production techniques now and awesome equipment, so it's not that it sounds like lo-fi or anything like that. It all sounds pretty high fidelity, but it captures a lot of that energy, a lot of that raw energy, and there's a lot more of the bluesiness on this album, and like a punk kind of aesthetic going on. I would say so, at least, you know, especially with it coming out last second. I feel like that's a pretty like punk rock thing to do, like put together this crazy album and not even tell anybody about it, and then it's just out one day. Because he has the power to do things like that and make it successful. So anyway, some awesome tracks on here, for real. I mean, I like every song on here. I mean, most of these top albums I like every song, but this album, it's like, it was really hard to pick favorites, because like every song sounds really good, has cool lyrics and like a cool message behind it, and you know, always inventive guitar playing from Jack White. But my favorites were Bombin' Out. It's a really fast, crazy song. Brings a lot of punk energy. And Underground, which is definitely a nice bluesy, kind of rootsy sounding song, but still kind of gets a little bit heavier towards the end, and is pretty cool. Reminds me of some stuff off of like Icky Thump or something like that. It definitely has the most like later White Stripes vibes to me. Alright, now the top 2 records of the year. It was really hard to make this list at all, you know what I mean? Like I said, I did a lot of last minute listens, so, you know, it was kind of hard to figure out what I really wanted to put where, especially with some of the last minute listens really hitting me at the last second. I really dug them a lot. Most of them anyway, for sure. So it was hard. The 2 records that I put at the top were records that stuck with me the whole year. Whereas the other ones, like, I really had to do some deep listening. Most of them anyway. Like a few of those back there, like I definitely listened to a few times, but these 2 I listened to the most of the year for sure. And at number 2 we have MGMT with Loss of Life, and what an incredible album, like, for real. It came out February 23rd, so pretty early this year, like I was saying, and 45 minutes, 9 seconds. I guess they have their own vanity label. It says MGMT / Mom and Pop and BMG, and it was produced by Daniel Lapatine, MGMT, and Patrick Wimberly. Yeah, what a crazy album, you know, like, at least it starts off kind of crazy, and then it gets a little chiller towards the end, but like, the fact that MGMT have even taken this route, you know, like it's just nuts. Like Little Dark Age was such a like kind of electronic, like still it was a very dark record and definitely had some doom and gloom going on in the lyrics like this album does. I mean, they always kind of have that kind of vibe going on, but that album was very dancey, whereas this album is very like kind of artsy, like kind of sounding. Like I mean, you could dance to some of the songs on it for sure. I'm not saying that. It's just more so like the focus is less on like the beats of the song and stuff, and there's just all of this crazy arrangement, and every song's kind of like a different world, like a almost different nostalgic world for them. Like I guess they're kind of diving into some of their influences on here, which is pretty obvious if you look at the video to Bubblegum Dog. Like, it has all those 90s alternative rock and grunge tropes. Well, they're parodying, you know, a lot of 90s videos in the video. And I think I saw an interview on YouTube where they talk about how that was, you know, kind of a lot of big inspiration for them when they were younger. So yeah, that's a lot of these songs definitely harken back to other styles, but they put it under that neo-psychedelic MGMT kind of scope, and it's awesome. You know, they never didn't know how to write good songs. I mean, the only album I didn't like from them was the self-titled, and it still has a couple good songs, but you know, this one is, even though it gets kind of mellow towards the end, which isn't really what I was anticipating, you know, like with MGMT, I always expect some ridiculousness, like in the middle or the end of the album or something, but it's pretty front-loaded. Like, a lot of the crazier songs are in the front, and the back half is a lot of nice, pretty songs and kind of more down-tempo and spacey, atmospheric kind of writing, but super, super good. Like, I mean, every song on it, even the chill ones, are just well-written, nice arrangements on them and cool lyrics, a lot of reflection, and kind of like, you know, that one's called Loss of Life, so it's, I don't know if it was triggered by some sort of mourning process or something like that, but you know, it definitely has a lot of those like kind of just facing your own mortality like kind of themes on it and stuff like that, and it's pretty cool, especially for a band that's like, you know, they're 5 albums in, but you know, it's pretty late into their career at this point, you know, being that they started in the 2000s. Yeah, I'm totally impressed with it. It's such beautiful songwriting, and you know, there's still some quirkiness to be had in here for sure, especially in my 2 favorite tracks, Mother Nature, which is sort of like a Britpop-esque kind of like inspired thing, but still kind of has like a little bit of that like I guess lighthearted MGMT like psychedelicness to it. And then Bubblegum Dog, of course, you know, that song is just one of their best songs, and it totally stands out on the album for just like pushing the limits of like song structure and all kinds of different stuff like in a pop song. It's really cool, and obviously has a great video. But yeah, that was an awesome album. Me and my guitar player in my band, Green Ridge Cody, we were definitely a little obsessed over that one when it first came out, just how crazy it was that MGMT still sounds this good, and they're still cranking out, you know, catchy ass hits. So moving on to my number 1 top album of the year, and you know, I guess if you saw my Spotify Wrapped picture that I posted on my Instagram, you probably didn't, but if you did, you would have seen that this band was on my top artists of the year. So it'd be no surprise to expect that their album release this year would be my number 1, but goddamn, it's such a good album. I mean, a lot of people I watch on YouTube have put it in their top. I think a couple people put it as their top, so should be no surprise. It is the Lemon Twigs with A Dream Is All We Know, and it came out in May 3rd, and 34 minutes, 23 seconds, so a nice brisk album. And it was on Captured Tracks, which I've never heard of, and then we got a self-produced album again. There was a lot of my favorites were produced by the artists themselves this year, which is really cool, really neat to see. But yeah, the Lemon Twigs are back with more Beatles, Beach Boys, Rolling Stones, Kinks, you know, every band from the 60s, and even some from the 70s, you know, like T-Rex and David Bowie and stuff like that. Like, a lot of songwriting pops up in here that is reminiscent of a lot of the great, you know, rock bands from the origins of rock and roll. And they do such a good job at like just sounding like all these people, but still sounding like themselves. And like, you know, it's all recorded by the two brothers, the Daddario brothers, and you know, it's just insane how awesome they know how the right songs, you know, and they just know how to blend their voices together in a way that just sounds unique to them, while also, you know, obviously wearing their influences on their sleeve, you know, because a lot of these songs on here are pretty much just like tributes to a lot of these artists I was talking about, you know, like My Golden Years, like the lead single and song off the album kind of sounds like the Raspberries or like a Bird song or something like that, you know, just very jangly power pop like kind of stuff. And you know, they go on to do all kinds of stuff like Sweet Vibration is a total Brian Wilson tribute. So is In the Eyes of the Girl totally sounds like In My Room or Surfer Girl, or you know, one of those nice Brian Wilson ballads from like the mid 60s, like Beach Boys era. But you know, you got some really awesome songwriting on here. A lot of quirkiness. There is some rockers, you know, like My Golden Years and Rock On and stuff, but you got some pseudo psychedelic stuff like Peppermint Roses and Sweet Vibration and A Dream Is All I Know. That song is awesome. Awesome title track to an album. It's just got such a nice flow, even though all, you know, different styles they're tapping into. It all is so cohesive because it's all the Lemon Twigs, and at this point, if you've been following them, you know, I feel like we're all kind of used to the way that they sound, even if they hop from like style to style. You know, it has a cohesive sound, and like I said, the album's a brisk, short kind of listen, and it kind of just invites you to want to come back to all these short, like saccharine sweet songs like over and over again. It's definitely an album that I'm never gonna not be listening to. It's incredible. They're a band that I'm really happy to have discovered after diving deep into last year's listening with Everything Harmony, which had I had listened to that more than like once or twice, you know, for my video last year, it definitely would have been in the top 20 without a doubt. I mean, I've listened to that album more this year than I probably have any album from last year, just getting more into the Lemon Twigs. And yeah, it's been an awesome ride. They're awesome musicians. Even the drummer that they have in the band and their bass player, you just awesome like session dudes. Kind of wish they would appear on some of the records, but I kind of get the Daddario brothers like process on making their album, and it's, as long as the other band members don't have a problem with it, I don't see a problem with it as a fan. Because they all pull off these arrangements live so well after having watched so many clips of them on YouTube and whatnot. Like, great performers, great songwriters. Happy to have discovered them. They do a great job at playing into nostalgia very well, while also, you know, being themselves, like I was saying. And killer guitar work and keyboard work and the drums and the bass grooves on here, and like I said, the vocal harmonies, the way that both of them have different songs on here, and you just know which one is Brian's and which one's Mike's. It's crazy. They're such a good band. Yeah, I can't get enough of it. Lemon Twigs at number 1. So yeah, it was a crazy year. Lots of crazy last minute releases from a lot of my favorite artists. I wouldn't say there was like a lot of like my all-time favorites this year. Like last year had a couple more of like bands, you know, that I've been into and obsessed with for a long time. Whereas this year, you know, just had a few, but it also introduced me to a lot of artists that I'm really glad to have gotten into. Like I was always digging The Cure, but after their new album came out, like I kind of got into them a little bit more and kind of appreciate, you know, them and their place in music history a little bit. And definitely St. Vincent too. That was a nice surprise. And Mother. Lots of cool, interesting artists that I'm glad that I get the opportunity to listen to by just simply diving into the year and, you know, picking out my favorite music of the year. I just feel like it's important for me as an artist to do stuff like that, you know, to grow my musical vocabulary in a way, and also turn other people on to some stuff maybe that they wouldn't be aware of, you know, unless they're watching videos like this on YouTube. But, you know, let me know if you disagree. If you agree, down in the comments. I always like to see other people's lists and know what their thoughts are, you know. Maybe you've heard some of these, maybe you haven't. And hopefully I can turn you on to some stuff. But either way, I'll see you in the next video for the top 20 songs of 2024. And with that comes like Spotify playlist and stuff. So you check out some of the stuff in that. Until then, like and subscribe, and peace and love. Have a good day.